Right. Okay. Good evening and welcome, everybody. So we're in lesson number 9 of our series on landscapes, and we're carrying on from where we left off last week. So we were looking at a few new artists that approached landscapes in slightly different ways. And one of them, Phil Byendorp, he uses quite a strong, bold colour for his background before then painting the landscape over the top. So we've used a few of the techniques that we've been looking at previously, which is to use ink as an underpainting, which I did last week, and then starting over the top with acrylics. And all this on top of, for me anyway, a Venetian red colour. And then the idea is to leave some of that Venetian red coming through in places. To create a really, to use that red to sort of bind the whole of the picture together. And then, of course, previously we've been experimenting with lots of different mark making techniques in order to get this sense of space and distance that we've been looking for in these paintings. So we'll have a quick look, because we're going to just crack on with painting today. We'll have a quick look at what I've been doing, but also obviously we'll have a look at some of the artists as well that we've that I showed you last week, just to remind you. So don't forget, if you want to look at them yourselves, they're on the drive on the website. So all you need to do is log on to the website and then click on the right button, and you'll be able to look at all the pictures yourselves or print some out. Okay, so we'll have a quick look then over on the studio wall. Here we go. So this is one of the paintings in particular that I've been inspired by, and if I zoom right into it, you can see how the artist has used kind of a little bit of a reddish background behind here, and how little bits of that red appear throughout the painting. And I really like that effect, because you've got this kind of, you can see the brush strokes on here, and the blue in the background kind of encloses around the tree and so forth, which is what I'm going to be working on a little bit this evening on my picture of the bridge. And the other thing I really liked about a lot of these is we've got these nice almost like outlines around the outside of the design as well, to create this really interesting style and use of colour as well. And I've just noticed something down here as well, how we've used these lovely purples and blues, which is very much coming out of Impressionism, making things look, give this soft effect, a little bit like some of the Impressionists we've looked at previously. And then obviously, and then we look right into the background at those hills or mountains or this island towards the back there, and you can see how we've used these much paler colours. So heavier, darker colours and details at the front, and then as we go towards the back, paler and less detailed colours. So we've got these nice harsh outlines at the front here, which draws us through from the front through the landscape. Okay, so I'll just show you the other ones that I've also been looking at as well. So I'll put that one, I think it goes there, and this one by Dan Weimer. If you remember, I got this artist out last week, and he paints these kind of patches of paint to create this sense of the water and the reflections on the side of this boat. There's some more examples of those on the drive. So that's another sort of thing that I've been thinking about with the painting I'm doing at the moment. So we're taking ideas from different places here. And Phil Byendorp again. This is one that I've been using quite closely. So it's almost like the background is really dark, and then we've got these patches of colour that make the rocks. So you've got, basically it's really contrasty, and it's one of the things that I really love in a painting is strong contrast and this sense of light in there as well. So I should be looking at that too. And this one, Regine Roy as well. It's another nice one. Just bring that one to the top. Regine Roy. Whoop. There we go. So again, we've got this this idea of the outlines and the use of blues in the rocks here, and then again some softer detail up there towards the back, which helps create this sense of space within the picture as well. Oh, just a little bit of a delay there, I don't know why. Still got the outlines, but a much sort of paler colour scheme, and then more details as we come up towards the front here as well. So stronger contrast and not so strong contrast in the background as well. So all these kinds of messages that we've been talking about to help create interesting pieces of work. And I've got another one by Dan Weimer here. It's a slightly different style. He's quite an interesting artist because he uses watercolour and acrylic together. So if I get a chance over the next over the next week or so, well, it'll be just next week, then I'm going to try out some of his techniques. So the one, if you look up at the boat over here, I do have a little bit of a video on it, so I might show that to you for fun. But he uses masking fluid and washes of colour, takes the masking fluid off, and then paints back over the top of that with watercolour. So I think I'll show you that because it is really interesting because it's really different. So I'll get that up in a few minutes when I've finished yapping on just here. All right, so over to the desktop, and we can see how where we were last week. So I didn't get much done between last week and today. A very busy class over in Rawn's, but you can see here how things have been developing, and this idea that we were thinking about with using the bright background and leaving some areas of the colour. So this is more daubed marks on here. I could probably make some of the marks a little bit smaller and different towards the bottom here, but I quite like it as it is. And then as we move down, the longer brush strokes tumbling down here to create this waterfall effect, and the small brush strokes with the outlines towards the back. So I'm going to try a few different approaches to some of this as I work around it, which I'll mention as I go. Again, referencing the artist Poole that we were just talking about just now. Okay, so that was about all I've got to say for now, but what I will do is I'll put that video on in a few minutes and you can have a look. It is quite a long one, so I won't play all of it, but it's quite interesting, the technique that he uses. Okay, right. I hope that makes sense to everybody and that you're all happy getting on with what you're doing. If you need some help or guidance, of course, that's why I'm here. So I will do that. I want to say Merry Christmas, but I'm not going to. I only say that it's because there's loads of people putting decorations up around here. And I'm thinking, no, not yet. And I'm doing Christmas fairs next week and the week after. So, but anyway, yeah. So I hope you're all stuck in and everything and enjoying what you're doing. And if you need some help, let me know. And any second now, I'll put on this video.
Jamie,
yeah?
can I just ask, are we using inks and acrylics on this?
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah. So what I did is I put down the red first. Yeah.
Yeah, that's acrylic. Yeah,
that's acrylic. Yeah. And then after that, I sketched out the design in pencil.
Yeah.
Just the basic shapes, not too much detail, using a grid. So I got things more or less in the right place. And then after that, I started to paint it with inks. So all of these, let me just move it across slightly. All of these marks here are me kind of mapping out where all the details are going to go, but with ink. And then when that's done, I then start applying the paint on top. So you've almost got like an under drawing or an under painting, but with ink.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Lovely, thank you.
Okay, and the nice thing about using the inks is you've got lots of, you can create lots of interesting marks and stuff with the ink, which gets you in the right frame of mind for then applying those with acrylics as well. Okay, cool, great. Does anyone else want to ask anything at this point?
When I do art fairs, it's really interesting. Some people...
Right, I've got the video. Oh gosh, hang on. I have the video if you'd like to see a bit of it.
Okay.
All right, hang on. Give us a second. Just get it on and go over. So here he is. I'm just going to take it back slightly, put some sound on.
Sorry, you know. So this is the most fun of the thing, is where I strip off this mask, and what I get is this. I call it kind of the fishbone stage, and everything that I painted with mask saves the white of the paper.
So he's used masking tape, masking fluid, and he's done washes of colour.
Rhythm-wise. And what I mean by that is
What are you skipping off?
this is it's a brand new one. It's a little rubber cement lift. It's almost like a piece of crepe sole of a shoe. And I just got this at Dick Blick the other day. So what I do is
Is that watercolor paint?
this is 300, the same paper I'm painting on that other one.
How long do you have to wait for it to dry before you can lift that?
The longer the better. A lot of times what I'll do when I do a big one, I'll dry it overnight. But I painted the masking on it about noon today, and then I painted the acrylic on it about 1 or 2 this afternoon. And so I'm really safe. The tricky thing about it is it's the acrylic that's sitting on top of the mask, because the acrylic that's on the paper dries through the air and dries down the paper, but it's the acrylic on top of the thing that has to air dry. And boy, if you get impatient and you rub and streak that acrylic across it just because you're impatient. But a lot of people didn't know that this mask works with acrylic. And you can actually put fairly thick acrylic on it and it will tear right on that mask line. So I'll paint on this for a little bit, but a really good example is that one over on the far left with the water.
Could you bring that up and put it on the mirror so they could see it?
Yeah. So this is essentially the same kind of step without the canoe. But what I did was I masked everything. Everything that's dark in this picture is acrylic. Everything that's light is transparent watercolor. So my sky is transparent watercolor, and my water is transparent watercolor, and all this dark over here is acrylic. Now this is a print of it, but you can still see the transparency and the opacity of it. And you can see, I actually mixed kind of a turquoise green with matte medium and obliterated this whole bottom, and I made the painting work because there was too much detail down here. So then it's just a matter of me painting right over the top of this acrylic, and the acrylic stays put. People always ask me, well, can't you do it with watercolor? And it's like, well, you can, but I've got the freedom. And I've got the freedom to just go right over the top, and that acrylic's not going to move. So then I'm gonna kind of just start to tint this in.
How did you decide where to put your mask?
Just, you've got to be how does an artist decide anything? You know, when I first started it, I would mask everything, and it was all little things, and I like a little size variation. I like to have some masses of acrylic and some smaller areas. I don't know if that answered your question, but it's just, the more I do, kind of the more intuitive.
Is this hot pressed or cold pressed?
It's hot press, and a lot of times I like to work on a cold press illustration board. Irving Shapiro did a lot of beautiful paintings of waterfalls and stuff, and I always remembered I tried to paint like him, and it wasn't until I saw that he painted on cold press illustration board, and then as soon as I did that, they looked like his. Because cold press illustration board, watercolor board, you can stack up the darks, and they don't get inky looking. So the fun part about this is just kind of almost like a coloring book at this point, is I'm just kind of coloring things in, and I'm still treating it as a watercolor. And if I don't like something, I can let it dry, I can mask more areas. This I thought might have been a nice little green tree. But it's amazing how it just kind of starts to take shape. This is fairly simple, but you can kind of get the concept of what I'm doing. And I've really never seen anybody. I've seen a million people use masks, but not like kind of a woodcut like this.
There you go. Oh gosh. So I just thought that was really interesting to see.
Amazing.
Yeah, because it's something that I've never thought to work like that before. And there's thousands, endless ways of working, isn't there? But I thought using the masking fluid, using the acrylic for the permanence, and then using the washes of watercolor over the top really works nicely, doesn't it? Because there's kind of a bit of freedom to it at the same time, because you just do the wash over the top after you've removed the masking fluid, and you can create these, like you were saying, semi-transparent and transparent layers against opaque ones, which is how he created these ones. So we have another quick look. So this boat one just here, look, is basically what he was doing. Just there, I suppose, I think so. So all of these little blobs and things we were just talking about will be watercolor, and then the bits around it, and I don't know because I didn't paint it, but this is what I'm thinking, are the acrylic areas that he's worked on. But it works really nicely, doesn't it? So I just thought that next week I may have a little experiment with some of those things with you. So I'm trying something slightly different out with this at the moment. So you'll see at the top here, just above my head, are I've started to paint the bricks on the bridge at the back there, yeah. But I'm trying something different out. So I've painted this whole area dark, and I'm working over the top with the acrylic. I'm using a bit of white. I'll just bring that up there a bit of white, some grey, and some different browns to create the colour of the bricks. And up there, and then I'm using the paint because it would be more opaque to start putting in some of these rocks on top. And the idea being that we can get some of these outlines that the other artist we were looking at, Bill Beindorp, has on his work. So I'm just using a really small flat brush to create these rocks and things to begin with, and then I may put some washes of colour back over the top later to add a bit more tone, so more translucent paint and things, and we'll see what we end up with there. So using this piece is obviously quite an experimental one, see what kind of results we can get. And then I might do the same sort of thing, looking at the rocks at the front, foreground, and that as well. Okay, so we're off now with that technique. So we're applying the dark. I've applied a dark area of colour, as you can see, using ultramarine and burnt umber to create quite a dark, almost black brown. And then using greys, yellow ochres, whites, and a little bit of the Venetian red again, mixing those colours and creating those varied kinds of rocks or stones that make that bridge. So a bit later on, I do find that I preferred to paint in the outlines and the rocks, because you get more of the Venetian red showing back through from the background there. Although the rocks over there on the left hand side where my hand is, they still look pretty good, and there are still some reds coming through, but I think I like it more with more of the reds coming through, very much like the sky and the tree that we've already been putting in over here. And then adding those outlines to the image. So I kind of prefer that idea in the center there, which, you know, reflects to a certain extent our artist that we've been looking at, Phil Bindup. So I'm doing the, obviously clearly doing the willowy looking tree, which is towards the back there, by working directly over the top of the blue area. And in a moment, I work back into the tree over there on the right, and then add in some more white after that too. So I think at this point we were discussing lighting in studio as well. So some people have said to me that they're painting away in the evening and they've got these yellowy lamps or lights, which then, of course, in daylight changes the way that you're painting, or you thought you're painting, looked. So I have these lights in my studio, which are LED lights that you use next to your computer while you're working, called Lit Ones, I think they're called on Amazon. And they've got a nice heavy base, but you can change the feel of the lighting. So you can make the lighting warmer or cooler, which helps you to be able to see your picture properly, even in the evening, in studio and so forth. So I highly recommend getting some good lighting or a nice lamp. LEDs are brilliant. The other thing you can do is adjust the lighting as well. So you can make it much lighter, brighter, and more subtle, depending on what you need. Anyway, so you can see I've worked on the tree there on the right hand side, adding more branches in and so forth. And then I didn't see there if I went into the in between the branches is quite good to do. So we have a look at the old Phil Bindup idea of creating these. There we go. Creating these distinctive outlines, which almost feels like the sky is coming in on those shapes, or the background is coming in on those shapes, making them kind of feel quite painterly as well, I suppose. So as you can see, I do prefer this outlining technique here. I quite like it because you can control the outlines on the rocks, but you can also have that nice warm feeling coming back through. And then we move on to the grassy area, and I quite like watching this a little bit, or I quite enjoy doing it, because it really starts when you've got this opposite colour, like being a green, working over the top of the red, I think it's really quite striking and interesting to look at. So I'm using yellow and a little bit of white and some different greens to create this effect. I think one was a grass green and yellow cadmium yellow. And as you can see here, I'm adding some highlights into the rocks or the stones on the bridge. Bring those forward slightly. The nice thing about this is, of course, that you can put down these colours and marks and things, and you don't have to worry about them being perfect, because you can come back and alter them, work back over them, and so forth. And again, I'm keeping in mind this idea of creating these outlines like our artists do, to make these quite distinctive shapes, to create this style of work that we're interested in. And yeah, I added some highlights in there. At some point as well, I do use the back of the brush to scratch some areas and create even more texture. And I think just towards the end of this, I go back into the sky as well a little bit. So the other important thing, perhaps, that I haven't mentioned is that I am mixing the paint a little bit on the palette, but I'm also mixing the paint whilst it's wet on the surface. So it's kind of wet on wet at the same time as mixing some on the palette. I get a rough sort of idea of the colour on the palette, put it on the paper, and then I alter it and adjust it as I'm working to get a little bit closer each time to what I'm looking for. And it is this kind of process of putting something down, altering it, eliminating it, repainting it, until you get somewhere close to being happier with what you're aiming to do. Here at the back, I added some extra small details and a little bit of highlights using the white, just to pick out that white in the background and draw you through and under that beautiful old bridge, somewhere in Yorkshire, I think. So in the art class the following day, I did a little bit more work on this, so you'll see that next week. I feel like I'd really love to finish off this piece, so I will be doing a bit next week. And yeah, the other thing that I was considering is trying out this idea with masking fluid, acrylic and watercolour. But I will do that as a sort of experiment on the page, on a separate page, sorry. So the key thing, of course, is that you keep looking back at the image you're working from in order to continue observing the details of it and having fun and getting into this kind of meditative sort of flow, if you like. So I hope you've enjoyed today, and we'll see you for a little bit more in lesson 10, the final one before Christmas. So have a good one and take care. Bye-bye.